Alright guys, it's a big one here today. I'm going to be ranking the 9 active UFC men's champions. Who's that 9th, you may ask? It's none other than Tom Aspinall, man. Let's be real, at this point, he's a champion in our hearts. He's just a champ. He's been locked out of the champion party, the champion dorm, and he's crying from outside, but in our hearts, he's just been locked out, and now this analogy is kind of being stretched, and we're going to get onto number 9 here. Who's at number 9, you may ask? It's going to have to be Dricus, man. Hey, I'm a fan of Dricus too. I like Dricus, there's a lot of Dricus haters. I'm a fan of Dricus. But we're just looking purely last fights. That's a Strickland win, right? Yeah, nothing after that. And is that a win? Is that a Strickland win, or is that a Strickland fumble? And you know, I do like Dricus' fight style. Very fun to watch. Just, you know, them old days, the UFC 1. He channeled to the UFC 1 here, you know, almost a Mark Coleman. Nah, not Mark Coleman, but just when UFC was just no rules action. He is that, but even as a fan, I'll just have to admit he did lose that Strickland fight, and it was a difference in, some people thought maybe Dricus did more damage. I would argue just the volume, the output from Sean. That was a Sean win. And not to hate on Dricus, but if we look here, we're in a good position for champs right now in the UFC. People forget. Hey, people forget, man. We're in a good position. I mean, you look at quarantine, you look at lockdown champions, that was a bit of a rough patch. We look now, I would say, all of these men, it's hard to pick out something too negative about them. Number 9, Dricus. You know, number 8, you know, this is where things maybe are getting a little debatable. This get a bit controversial now. People aren't going to like this one. But listen, I've got to put Jones in 8, man. I think we do. Listen, this isn't an all-timer resume list, which people mistake. Look, Dana mistaked that, right? Saying Islam was before Jones on a pound-for-pound list and Jones could never be topped. Pause. Which also, I can still never understand that in its own right. But that's another thing entirely. But we're looking at the pound-for-pound active UFC fighters, and when you look at activity, no one has done less here than Jones. I mean, you look at Garn, dominant win, and that's nice, and that's a really dominant performance, a quick one. But in heavyweight, what's he done before that? And what's he done after that? And that was a year ago now, that's in 2023. A little more than a year ago. And with that, you know, it comes where the quality of that win doesn't really put itself over the mix of quality and quantity of the other guys that I'm going to put higher than him on this list. And it sounds wrong putting Jones 8 out of 9 people in any list, but when you really look at the context, this is the right position for him, man. And now I know it's going to get bad because I've just said Aspinall is over Jones, you know, directly in the heavyweight division, but listen, I've always thought that. It's sneaky, but I have. And comparing to Topuria, for example, they've both had no defenses in their division, Jones and Topuria. Even take out activity, where Topuria, most recent win, 2024, February, that's recent, and a Volk, but leaving aside 2024, 2023, you know, almost a year's gap between those fights of Jones Gunn and Topuria Volk, but the performance themselves, I honestly like the Topuria win against Volk more than I do the Jones win against Gane. I mean, Volk just, sorry, Topuria just left kind of less question marks than after the performance. You know, like, he wiped Volk, he did, and I don't like to admit it, but I'm not a Topuria hater at the same time, but he did. And then you look at Jones against Gane, and that was just, there are still question marks there. It was only a few minutes, and it was just a weird sort of neck crank guillotine. It just leaves more question marks in it. Leaves more before, since Jones hasn't been an active heavyweight ever apart from in that performance. And we've got Ilya, who we know he does this to people, and we know that isn't a fluke from Topuria. So, yeah, it's going to have to be Jones, number 8. I'm not regretful of that placement. I mean, again, it's all about context. We move on. Number 7. This is getting more difficult now, to be honest. Number 7, I think this is where Aspinall could slot in. I just think, just about, and when I think about it, I'm close between Topuria and Aspinall. But out of the two, I have to give Topuria a little bit of the edge, man. Just a little bit. The undisputed belt, it does hold a little weight. At the same time as me putting, I've given Tom the credit by putting him in this list. Some people wouldn't regard the interim belt, but hey, I wouldn't. But in the circumstances of him just not being able to get to the undisputed, I felt that was only fair. Like I said, undisputed in our hearts. Look, a Pavlovich win, that's a great one here. Again, he just looked sharper and crisper on the feet than Sergey in every regard, and I mean, he looked like the power puncher out of the two. No Curtis Blades is doing that to Pavlovich. No other person apart from Aspinall, I think, can do that to Pavlovich. Maybe, I don't think a Gane can knock out Pavlovich in the same regard, but maybe a TKO I could see with a Gane against Pavlovich. But again, that's like probably one of the most impressive wins on here. So that's why we're putting an interim champ over the undisputed. And you look at activity, you look at that he's just had a streak of dangerous finishes before him also winning the title against Pavlovich, and unlike Jones, who hasn't had a resume at heavyweight yet, he's just completely wiped so many people. And I think he's one of the brightest minds in the game right now also. I do, it's just, you don't really see people finishing in the same way. It's just whenever you have a kind of phenom, it just feels like one of those rare moments you get a phenom in MMA who just completely knows what to do, like an Anderson Silva, where you kind of at some point expect them to get the finish each time or to make things look easy. And after that Pavlovich fight, I think Aspinall makes easy work of Curtis in his next, and so I am putting Tommy at 7, but that's with room to change. That's after a Curtis win, top 5. Right, and I've kind of foreshadowed things a bit here, but number 6, Ilya Topuria, number 6, man. The recent featherweight champ. This guy right here, man, just, bro, love him or hate him, bro, this man is aura personified, And actually, let me never say aura again. I hate that word. That word's been haunting my dreams, just being so overused. But Topuria just puts people into slumber, man. He puts them into hibernation. No open season. He's just, whenever this guy swarms people, whenever he just snaps into that offensive mode, I cringe for people, man. I cringe for his opponent. I cringe for whoever's against him when he has those aggressive combinations. And like when Volk was backing up with his hands, by his hips, against Topuria. I had my jaw clenched then, because Topuria, he has the power, but he also has the mind, and he knows really well how to cut people off into the cage, and then just absolutely wipe them out from there. And yeah, he has power light years ahead of most of the division at featherweight, but at the same time, he doesn't rely off that. He has that technique at the same time. I really like that for him. You know, he's kind of like the Gervonta Davis of the UFC, just dynamite hands, but also a really good knowledge of when to switch to those power combinations, you know, against Volk. That wasn't just him marching forwards and trying to knock him out the whole time, you know, in round one. Leg kicks, calf kicks. I really want to see him implement more of those calf kicks. Those were really nasty, and that's a development in his game. We've seen that his wrestling is nothing to joke about against Mitchell. Out wrestling Mitchell is really impressive, really. And one of his most impressive performances. It wasn't the highlight that a Jai Herbert win was, but to me that spoke to me most. That was like, okay, this guy is a scary contender, and this guy, I would put him at the highest chance of beating Volkanovski, and we look what happened. And yeah, his fight IQ is just really good also, and I've said that for Aspinall, I'll say it for Topuria. His fight IQ is insane, at the same time as having absolute stone hands. That's a deadly combination because you're not just telegraphing everything you throw, and when you do find that pocket of range to blast that hook, it's all the more effective because they don't see it coming. In Volk, that is the Volk story, and I didn't like that performance. I mean, I did like the performance, but I'm just saying I've got to give Ilya his credit. When I was rooting for Volk, he does get a bit much hate, I feel like, and that's not just, man. It's just put anyone in that Volk position. It's just the fact it was Volk, which is why people are hating. I feel like, I've got a feel for the Topuria guy, and he is getting quite a bit of hate just for knocking out Vulcan. But at the same time, I don't feel bad. He's living the high life right now. Yeah, Ilya Topuria, just probably one of the most dangerous guys on here. But he is going at 6 because he hasn't had the title defenses and he hasn't proved himself against. Yeah, he can. He hasn't yet as a champion. I'm gonna put Pantoja, I feel like, number 5. I'm gonna put Pantoja at number 5. You know, I do appreciate Pantoja when some people don't. I do appreciate that he's kind of a textbook champion. He's not getting ahead of himself. He's consistent, and he's consistent in his own division. You know, I'm getting tired of all this. I'm moving up to welterweight. This is dream, brother. Like, stay in your lane for a bit more. And that's what Pantoja's doing. And so it does stand out against other guys who always just yapping about moving up when they've got 1 defense, 2 I don't care how many. You have to get a significant amount and a gap in talent below you. Like, a gap in contenders before you can make that call. I like he doesn't do that. And to be real, there is a gap in talent in flyweight. He's still not doing that. I don't see, if it's not an Usyk rematch, I don't really see another contender that I would pick to win against Pantoja in a rematch, you know? And going on to the Usyk fight, there was no clear Usyk there. That was a close fight. There was no... People say that was clear for Usyk. I don't think that's an argument. I think that was a close fight. Either way you cut it. It's true. It was very close, but it wasn't clear, and I like 2 defenses for Usyk. And I do like the Royval win. That's a big person for the frame, for the weight division. Big frame, long arms, long legs, good boxing, and he just kind of had his way with Royval. Not decisively again, and that's almost Leon Edwards, but he did it, and he won impressively against Moreno, and I've got to give him his flowers for putting on that banger. You know, that's a slept-on fight. Looking back at it, you know, I really like that one. So I'm gonna give Pantoja his flowers for once. I mean, I do have my criticisms, but I feel like he can get a middle of the board number 5 as his kind of textbook, well-rounded champion. He's got, I mean, his only little questionable aspect maybe his cardio. Sometimes his cardio is a little questionable, but I like his grappling. I like his elbows. I like how he slices people. He just seems pretty violent for a flyweight, and I like that. So, yeah, he's on a number 5. Pantoja number 5. I like that. Things are getting tight with number 4. Do I say O'Malley makes the 4? With 2 really respectable wins, the knockout against Aljo, obviously, and just an onslaught against Vera. They're 2 very high-value wins in my book. And, yeah, man, he's just 2 absolute wipeouts. Sean is really the UFC prospect that has gone right and hasn't been fraud-checked, as people say. Fraud-checked. I don't say that. People say that. He's taken the right path. I feel like as soon as after the Yan fight, it almost felt like he worked on a few things. He didn't get complacent, which is honestly, it's not spoken about enough how important that can be as a champ. Not getting complacent, working from your last fight. I mean, we've got an example of that you know, when Holloway got complacent after the second Volkanovski fight. I won that. There's no doubt I won that. You know, lacks the training and training the holes in the third fight and doesn't adapt to the new Volkanovski, and we see the effects of that as an example. So hopefully Sean doesn't get complacent anytime soon, because I'm loving his style. He's just so slick, so refined, and when Sean's on, it's just a treat to watch. And I mean, call me glazing here, but it's just so elusive. Yeah, when he's consistent and he's just on for the night, which I think he is just ever since that Yan fight, that's a treat to watch it, and that's when he's at his best. And yeah, he used to annoy me, honestly. So that's in my defense of not just absolutely glazing. He used to annoy me. It's the Vera fight and the Aljo one where my perception changed, and I was just, this man's too fun to watch for me to care much about his personality, and that kind of overrides that. Sean, great to watch. Needs to do a little more bantamweight. You know, I'm hoping a Corey Sandhagen matchup. Whoever, you know, Umar, if Umar wins. This is top 3, bear. Number 3. Gonna have to be Leon Rocky Edwards, man. Let's drag him up. Oh, doesn't want to go. There we go. No, you're not quite 2 there, mate. Number 3. Rocky Edwards, and I'll tell you why. A lot of it has to do with the consistency, man, and that's to why he isn't number 2 or number 1. A lot of it has to do with the consistency, though. Why he is at number 3, let's lay down. Great technique in most things, just textbook technique. Great fight IQ, you know, amazing counter wrestling and takedown defense. Especially his takedown defense is probably up there with the best right now. In that Usman number 2, it's where that really highlighted that for me. Great range control. You know, I could keep listing. I could do more after that. I'm just not committing to the yap, really. Leon really is the final boss of point fighting or technical fighting. He decisions people in style, really takes like someone to get on his nerves to unlock the mythical Rocky Edwards, the Rocky. Not the Leon Edwards, the Rocky Edwards. Going through wins, we see obviously him smoking Kamaru the first time, or the second, to get the belt. Then decisively beating Usman the second time, which we don't hear about as much. That was an impressive performance, and it wasn't entertaining. Maybe that's why we didn't hear much. He didn't make the splash of the head kick, but if anything, that's more impressive. The way he just wasn't losing in that fight, and shows the progression, and shows it wasn't a fluke. Also, it annoyed me how many people saying that head kick was a fluke. He proved them wrong. He showed that he is a small level above, and I do feel bad for Kamaru's knees though. You know, maybe that would be a different story. Kamaru got some new knees, but a Colby win, it was underwhelming, but it's being his shoes. I think that's what I would do against Colby. Leon did his thing as a technician, and Colby didn't do his thing to make things dirty and weird and sloppy. And that's what he should have done against an Edwards. He just backed up, let Leon do his kind of boring technique thing, and it was a clear win. It wasn't exciting. I admit it wasn't. It was underwhelming, but it didn't show any holes for me as a winner. Not as a. He isn't one of my favorites, but again, pound for pound, this is the best thing. Okay, now number 2. He has held on long here, but unfortunately, it's one of my favorite fighters here. As the runner-up, we got Powhatan, Alex Pereira. Let's slide him into the 2. And let's talk about the positive. That's out of 9 champs. That's number 2 out of 9 champs. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just, as my favorite fighter, I'd love to see him in that 1. Not favorite, one of my favorites, but let's get to it. First off, this guy's not ducking or afraid of any one of his opponents recently. He's not ducking anyone who's on prospect to, okay, wait, now that I've said that, doesn't seem keen for the Ankalaev fight. However, that's less intimidation and more just, maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, think he just doesn't want to, he wants to put on an exciting one for the fans, and maybe doesn't think that'll be exciting. I've just pointed out a little hole there, but for the vast majority, he's not ducking. And his opponent resume is really nice, middleweight and light heavyweight. Kind of have to stick to light heavyweight here since he's the light heavyweight champ, but there you've got Blachowicz, Prochazka, and Jamal Hill, and those are all world-class opponents, and those are all, apart from Jan, he made them look easy, and the Jan in itself performance was impressive because it answered questions we had about his game, like his grappling and his takedown defense, and he still got the edge there, and really that developed him, that performance itself. Slight problems in round 1 against Yuri, but adjusted perfectly, caught him like that, and really just added to that left hook highlight. And then obviously showing his best performance yet with just a wipeout, like I've said, against Jamal Hill. And there's no questions, there's no what if here. He's a guy who's really good at exploiting the tiniest holes in his opponent's game and really punishing that as a kickboxing centered fighter. And the gap is the grappling. Just a bit also. It's not like he's totally out of his waters on the ground, and the point is, that's on paper. Let's take this off of paper. He doesn't need grappling when he's keeping it on the feet, and he has been. And his takedown defense is good enough to, I feel, keep mainly up against like an Ankalaev, and his power is good enough to get people out of there before they take him down. So that's really what explains the number 2. All right, now number 1. So in my opinion, the best active men's champion in the UFC, and I don't know why I'm building this one up, because you see it. This is Islam Makhachev, and just looking at how he made Poirier look and Oliveira look and even Volk in the second fight is where the proof is. And this guy's just an absolute train. Just an absolute train where he just shiftily just adjusts to any one of his opponents. The stand-up is honestly high level at this point. This is why I think Islam could surpass Habib's status at lightweight. He causes trouble, wherever he has you. I mean, he literally beat Poirier on the feet. That might be controversial. That might be debatable. I would say he literally beat Poirier on the feet. He has nasty knees from the necktie. Just nasty knees, and he kind of bends people into a pretzel. See how he had Oliveira? The Oliveira fight, he just kind of had him bent up so he looked zesty. That was weird. And that's his strength. The way he can just... And the strength is sus. The strength is, some juicy strength. Yeah, he just brings anyone down he wants to, really. Apart from Poirier. Which is weird. Why did he struggle more against Poirier than Oliveira in the takedowns department? I don't know, but I'm watching the Oliveira fight kind of stunned me and put him high in my book very early because he just flattened him so nonchalantly, and that was the mark for Makhachev for me. Just flattened him, pointed all his weaknesses, and that's a fighter who we literally know for getting up and getting through. He made look out of Islam's waters, to be honest, and that's me as a huge Oliveira fan. So yeah, it was a crazy performance. All the ones after were, apart from the first Volk fight, and hey, that's history now. That's enough to say I think he's changed now to where he's head kicked Volk. He's redeemed that. Even if Volk wasn't in a good place then, he still did. Islam still did that. Then he did dominantly beat Poirier. And Poirier had a few moments himself, but then again, that was the most on I think I've seen Poirier recently. Poirier did himself proud in that one, and Islam still looked great, so great on the feet. And yeah, he just smushes people, and that grants him number 1. More what he's done to people. Number 1. Now he is 3 title defenses down. Yep, 3 title defenses down. I think he can beat Arman. I think he could beat Sarukian. And I think, he'll surpass Habib. And if everything goes well, become the GOAT of lightweight. And I do like Islam, man. I do like Islam. I like his style. He's growing on me as a person, as a personality. It's just a shame we had to see him beat so many fan favourites, really. If you look back, that's literally the last 3 people he beat are guys who I really like to watch. That's the unfortunate part. Islam caps off the list, number 1, pound for pound active UFC champion. My list, at least. So let me know if you guys, what you'd change in the list, because I like this ranking, but I imagine some of these placements have angered people. So yeah, do that, and yeah, thank you for watching this far, and I would appreciate you subscribing. All right, see ya.